The moment I walked into Rosewood Manor wearing my thrift store special, a faded cardigan with a suspicious stain and jeans I'd bought for $3, I heard it. That whisper that had followed me for 17 years. "Look, the stinky little sheep is here." My stepmother Veronica said it just loud enough for her sister Dolores to hear, but I caught every word. I always did. She stood there in her $5,000 designer dress, greeting guests like she owned the place. The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. I'm June Lin. I'm 32 years old, and according to everyone in this room, I'm a failure who gives discount massages above a Chinese restaurant. What they don't know is that I own this entire venue, and Veronica has been collecting venue rental fees from them for 3 years, while pocketing every penny. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My mother died when I was 15, brain cancer. 3 months of watching her fade away while my father Harold checked his stock portfolio in the hospital waiting room. He remarried exactly 4 months later. Not 6 months like he tells people, 4. He thinks I don't remember, but I remember everything. Veronica moved in with her son Connor, and suddenly I went from grieving daughter to unpaid maid who slept in the unheated room above the garage. "June, you're late!" Veronica's voice cut through my memories like nails on expensive crystal. She claimed to inherit but actually shoplifted from Bloomingdale's. I knew because I'd seen the security footage when I bought the shopping center last year. "Sorry, Veronica, the bus broke down." I shuffled forward, making sure to catch my toe on the edge of the Persian rug. My cranberry juice went flying, landing squarely on my cardigan. Perfect aim, if I do say so myself. "Oh my God, she's drunk already," someone whispered. I think it was Cousin Bradley, the one who sells essential oils and claims they cure anxiety better than actual medication. "She's not drunk, she's just challenged," Dolores stage whispered back, tapping her temple in that universal sign for crazy. Funny thing about Dolores, she tells everyone she's a licensed therapist. She's actually a dog groomer who took one online psychology course in 2003. I dabbed at my shirt with cocktail napkins while scanning the room. There was Connor at the bar, his toupee slightly askew, reviewing what looked like legal documents with some guy in a cheap suit. He wasn't even trying to hide them. Why would he? I was just the stupid stepsister who could barely tie her own shoes, according to the family narrative. "Incompetency filing," I heard him say, laughing. "Once she's declared unfit, managing her mother's remaining assets will be much simpler." My mother's remaining assets. The ones they didn't know included 12 rental properties, 3 shopping centers, and a portfolio that would make Connor's investment genius claims look like a kindergartner's lemonade stand business plan. Harold stood in the corner, avoiding eye contact with me while bragging to his golf buddy about supporting 2 households. Right. The man who stole $400,000 from my mother's life insurance was playing the martyred father. He'd gotten sloppy, though, started using the same bank account for his mistress's shopping sprees. Amateur move. "June, sweetie, why don't you go freshen up in the bathroom?" Veronica suggested, her voice dripping with false concern. "You know how you get when there are too many people around." I nodded meekly, shuffling toward the bathroom while letting my shoulders droop in that defeated way they expected. On my way, I passed the reception desk where Veronica had carelessly left her papers. Right on top was an insurance cancellation notice for the venue. Final warning, she'd been collecting $500 a month from 30 family members for venue membership and another $2,000 monthly in insurance premiums, but hadn't paid a dime to the actual insurance company in 6 months. The bathroom mirror reflected back exactly what I wanted them to see. A mess, hair unwashed for 3 days, clothes that smelled faintly of mothballs and failure, eyes that looked just vacant enough to be concerning, but not enough to actually warrant intervention. I'd practiced this look for 2 years, ever since I bought Rosewood Manor through my LLC, Montgomery Enterprises. Tonight was Veronica's 60th birthday party. She'd spent 3 months planning it, telling everyone how she'd inherited this beautiful venue from her late mother. Her mother, who was very much alive and playing poker in Fort Lauderdale. I knew because I'd hired a private investigator to check, and also because the woman sent me a lovely Christmas card thanking me for the venue photos I'd sent her. She had no idea her daughter was claiming she was dead. When I returned from the bathroom, the party was in full swing. A jazz quartet played in the corner. The one Veronica told everyone cost $5,000, but actually cost $500. I knew because I'd seen her Venmo history when she used my laptop and forgot to log out. Technology illiteracy, the gift that keeps on giving. "June! There you are!" Connor called out, waving me over with that condescending smile that made me want to introduce his face to the venue's beautiful hardwood floors. But no, violence wasn't the answer. Financial destruction was so much more satisfying. Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time is it there. I see everything. Thank you so much for your support. I shuffled over to Connor, making sure to bump into 2 chairs and nearly knock over a flower arrangement on my way. The guests parted like I had something contagious. Poverty, perhaps, or worse, failure. "June, June, June," Connor said, shaking his head with theatrical disappointment. "When are you going to get your life together? Look at you. 32 and still living above that Chinese restaurant. What's it called again? The Golden Noodle? The Golden Dragon," I corrected quietly. What I didn't mention was that I owned the entire building, and the restaurant owners were lovely people who made me authentic Dan noodles whenever I actually stayed in that apartment, which was basically my office for managing properties. Right. Hey, do you still do those, what do you call them, therapeutic massages? He made air quotes around therapeutic, and his lawyer buddy snickered. "It's honest work," I mumbled, looking at my feet. My therapeutic massage license was real, actually. I'd gotten it as a cover story, but turned out I was pretty good at it. Plus, it gave me access to a lot of interesting conversations when wealthy clients assumed the help wasn't listening. Cousin Bradley joined our little circle, his essential oil smell preceding him by several feet. Today's blend was apparently success and prosperity, which smelled suspiciously like bathroom air freshener mixed with desperation. "June, honey, I've been worried about you," he said, putting his hand on my shoulder in a way that made my skin crawl. "Dolores and I were just discussing your situation." Right on cue, Dolores appeared, clutching her wine glass and her fake Hermes purse. I knew it was fake because I'd seen the same one at a street market in Chinatown for $40. Also because real Hermes doesn't make bags in that particular shade of trying too hard orange. "June's been having episodes," Dolores announced to the group, her voice pitched perfectly to carry to nearby tables. As someone with extensive psychological training, I can recognize the signs of deteriorating mental stability. Her extensive psychological training. The woman who once diagnosed her neighbor's cat with narcissistic personality disorder. "What episodes?" I asked, genuinely curious what fiction they'd created this time. "Well, you were seen talking to yourself in the grocery store last week," Dolores said triumphantly. "Full conversations with no one there." Ah, yes, my voice memos from my property manager about maintenance issues. But they didn't need to know that. "And living in that horrible apartment when your father has offered you help so many times," Veronica added, materializing beside us with her perfect timing for maximum cruelty. "It's like you want to suffer." Harold had never offered me help, unless you count the time he offered to manage my mother's remaining assets for me when I turned 18. I'd said no, and he'd never spoken to me directly about money again. "Speaking of which," Connor said, pulling out his phone, "I wanted to show you something, June. I'm starting a new investment fund. Revolutionary stuff. Cryptocurrency meets real estate meets, well, it's complicated. You wouldn't understand." He showed me a presentation that looked like it was made by someone who just discovered PowerPoint transitions in 1998. Lots of spinning text and cash register sound effects. The fact that he'd already scammed 12 investors out of nearly $500,000 wasn't mentioned in his little slideshow. Could I invest?" I asked hopefully, making my eyes go wide. "I have about $300 saved up." The entire group burst into laughter. Veronica actually had to dab at her eyes with her napkin. "Oh, June," Connor said, still chuckling. "That's adorable, but this is for serious investors only. People with real money. Besides," he lowered his voice conspiratorially, but still loud enough for everyone to hear, "you really shouldn't be handling money in your condition." My condition? That's when he pulled out the papers. Right there at the party, like it was normal to review legal documents between the shrimp cocktail and the 7-layer dip that Veronica claimed was catered, but was definitely from Costco. "We're just concerned about you." he said, his voice oozing fake sympathy. These papers would ensure someone responsible manages your affairs. Make sure you're taken care of. I noticed his lawyer friend wasn't actually reading the papers, just nodding along, probably because he'd been disbarred 3 years ago for embezzlement and couldn't legally read them in a professional capacity. But Connor didn't know that. Connor didn't know a lot of things, like how his toupee was starting to slide toward his left ear. The family has been discussing it, Dolores added. It's for your own good, sweetie. The family, like they were some sort of mafia organization instead of a bunch of grifters who couldn't organize a successful bake sale without someone skimming from the cash box. I let my lower lip tremble. But I'm doing better. I even got a raise at the massage parlor, 25 cents more per hour. More laughter. Veronica raised her glass in a mock toast. To June's raise. May it cover at least one extra ramen packet a week. Dinner was announced with great fanfare, as if Veronica had personally hunted and prepared the food instead of ordering it from a catering company and then refusing to pay the full amount. I knew about that too. The catering company owner had called me as the actual venue owner to complain. The seating arrangement told me everything about my place in this family. I was positioned between the swinging kitchen door and the speaker system, at what was clearly the reject table, with Veronica's weird neighbor who collected ceramic frogs, and Harold's accountant, who always smelled like boiled eggs. Veronica clinked her glass, standing at the head table like a queen addressing her subjects. Her crown might have been from Party City, but her arrogance was authentic. Thank you all for coming to celebrate my 60th birthday, she began, even though we all knew she was 63. It hasn't been easy these past 17 years. Here it came. The martyrdom speech. When Harold married me, I didn't just get a husband, I got responsibilities, challenges. Some of you know how difficult it's been raising someone else's child, especially one with special needs. Special needs. That was new. Last year, I was emotionally damaged, and the year before that, socially delayed. They kept updating my imaginary diagnoses like they were software patches. But family stands by family, Veronica continued, her voice catching with practiced emotion, even when that family member refuses help, lives in squalor, and can't seem to function in normal society. The ceramic frog lady patted my hand sympathetically. I resisted the urge to tell her that I'd actually funded the amphibian rescue center she volunteered at. Anonymously, of course. Which is why, Veronica said, building to her crescendo, Connor has something important to share about June's future care. Connor stood up, his toupee now definitely migrating. In about 10 minutes, it would achieve full lateral drift. I started mentally taking bets on whether it would fall into his soup course. Thank you, Mom. As you all know, I've been worried about June for a while now. He'd been worried about my inheritance for a while now, but Toma too. I've documented some concerning behaviors, he continued, pulling out his phone. June talking to herself in public. He showed a blurry photo of me recording voice memos. Living in conditions that can only be described as hazardous. A photo of my renovation property mid-construction. And most concerning, an inability to manage basic finances. That last one was rich coming from a man who declared bankruptcy twice and was currently running what the State Financial Crimes Unit had classified as a classical Ponzi scheme with delusions of grandeur. Which is why, Connor announced, I've taken the liberty of preparing incompetency papers. My friend here, Robert, is a lawyer who specializes in these cases. Robert, the disbarred lawyer, nodded solemnly, probably hoping no one would Google him. They wouldn't need to. I'd already prepared a lovely packet about his legal troubles for the authorities, complete with his current attempts to practice law without a license. This is for your own good, June, Connor said, looking at me with what he probably thought was brotherly concern, but actually looked like constipation. Once you're declared incompetent, we can access your mother's remaining trust fund and ensure it's properly managed. The trust fund. They thought there was a trust fund. There wasn't. I'd liquidated it years ago and invested in real estate. But they'd created this mythology around phantom money, and I'd let them. I stood up shakily, making sure to knock over my water glass. Please don't do this, I whimpered. I can take care of myself. I promise I'll do better. Sit down, June, Harold said, the first words he'd spoken to me directly in 3 years. Stop making a scene. But Dad, I'm not your father. he snapped. I'm Harold. We've discussed this. We hadn't discussed anything. He'd just stopped acknowledging me as his daughter after I refused to sign over my mother's life insurance to him. Your mother would want you taken care of, Veronica said. And that was the cruelest cut of all. She'd want responsible family members ensuring your safety. My mother would want me to burn this whole charade to the ground, but I couldn't say that. Not yet. I'll get a better job, I pleaded. I'll move to a nicer place. Please, just give me a chance. You've had 17 years of chances? Connor said. It's time for tough love. Tough love. From people who didn't know the meaning of either word. Robert the fake lawyer pulled out official-looking documents. If you'll just sign here, Ms. Lynn, we can begin the process of protecting your assets. I need to think about it, I said, letting tears fall. Real tears, actually. Because the sheer audacity of these people would make anyone cry. There's nothing to think about, Connor insisted. Sign the papers, June. That's when we heard it, the doorbell. Veronica frowned. Everyone was already here. I'll get it, I offered quickly, practically running to the door. I knew who it would be. The insurance inspector stood on the doorstep, clipboard in hand, looking exactly as official and intimidating as his job title suggested. Good evening, the inspector said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I'm here for the scheduled insurance inspection. There seems to be an issue with the premium payments for Rosewood Manor. The entire room went silent. Veronica's face went through several colors, starting with white and ending somewhere around puce. There must be some mistake, she said, click-clacking over in her designer heels that I noticed had the telltale red sole of Louboutins, except the red was slightly off. Probably from the same place she got her Hermes bags. I handle all the venue payments personally. That's exactly the problem, ma'am, the inspector said, checking his notes. You've collected approximately $50,000 in insurance premiums over the past 6 months, but none of that money has reached the insurance company. The math was beautiful. $2,000 a month from family members for insurance. 6 months of pocketing it all. I watched the other guests start pulling out their phones, probably checking their bank statements. I need to speak with the venue owner immediately, the inspector announced. That would be me, Veronica said, but her voice wavered. No, ma'am. The registered owner is a Ms. J.L. Montgomery of Montgomery Enterprises. Is she here? There must be a mistake, Veronica insisted, but sweat was starting to bead on her forehead, making her foundation run in tiny rivers. I inherited this venue from my mother. Your mother in Fort Lauderdale? The inspector asked innocently. The one who's very much alive according to public records? I slipped away during the chaos, heading to what everyone assumed was the bathroom. Instead, I used my key card to access the owner's private entrance, the one I'd had installed when I bought the building. My business suit was hanging exactly where I'd left it at 6 that morning, a perfectly tailored charcoal ensemble that cost more than Veronica's entire fake designer wardrobe. 3 minutes to change, 1 minute to pull my hair into a sleek bun, 30 seconds to apply the lipstick that transformed me from victim to victor. I looked in the mirror and saw J.L. Montgomery, CEO, staring back. I walked back through the main entrance, my heels announcing my arrival with authority. The entire party turned to stare. Good evening, I said, my voice carrying the kind of confidence that comes from actually owning what everyone's fighting over. I understand there's some confusion about the venue ownership. Veronica's mouth opened and closed like a fish at a sushi restaurant that just realized it was on the menu. You must be Ms. Montgomery, the inspector said, clearly relieved. We need to discuss the fraudulent collection of fees in your venue's name. Of course, I said smoothly, pulling out my phone. I have 3 years of documentation right here. It seems someone has been collecting venue rental fees from multiple family members, claiming to own Rosewood Manor. I showed him my screen, spreadsheets, bank records, even recordings of Veronica bragging about her clever little scheme to her hairdresser, who also happened to be my informant. Amazing what people will tell you when you tip 40%. That's impossible, Veronica stammered. I don't know who you are, but this is my venue. Really? I asked, pulling out the deed. Because according to this, Montgomery Enterprises has owned Rosewood Manor since 2021. And according to my records, you've been collecting $500 monthly from 30 family members as venue membership fees. That's $15,000 a month for a venue you don't own. The room erupted. Family members were shouting, demanding their money back. Connor was trying to calculate how much he'd paid over 3 years. I could see him using his fingers, which explained a lot about his revolutionary investment fund. "You," Dolores suddenly gasped, pointing at me. "Your voice, you sound exactly like June?" I suggested helpfully. Funny thing about voices, they can sound different depending on whether someone's been beaten down their whole life or whether they're speaking from a position of power. I let that sink in for a moment, enjoying the way recognition dawned on face after face, like a very satisfying game of dominoes. "But that's impossible," Connor said, his toupee finally achieving full independence and sliding toward his ear. "June's an idiot. She can barely hold a job. She lives above a Chinese restaurant." "Actually," I said, savoring every word, "June is a successful businesswoman who owns 12 rental properties, 3 shopping centers, and this venue. The massage therapy was just a cover to explain my flexible schedule, although I did get very good at it. Bradley, you really should see someone about that tension in your lower back. Too much time hunched over mixing those essential oil scams." Bradley dropped his wine glass. The sound of it shattering was music to my ears. "As for the insurance situation," I continued, turning back to the inspector, "I believe we'll find that Ms. Veronica Sullivan has been collecting premiums without forwarding them to your company. That's wire fraud, isn't it? Among other things," the inspector confirmed, pulling out his phone. "I'll need to contact the authorities." "No need," I said cheerfully. "They're already here." Right on cue, because I'd always had a flair for dramatic timing, a man in a neat suit stood up from table 7. He'd been posing as someone's +1, but he was actually state financial crimes investigator James Patterson. "Connor Sullivan," he said, approaching my stepbrother, "I need to speak with you about your investment fund. We've had several complaints." Connor's toupee chose that moment to complete its journey, landing in the soup tureen with a small splash. "I know this is getting intense. If you're still with me, please hit that like button. It really helps me create more stories for you." The investigator's presence had turned the party into something resembling a crime scene, which technically it was. Connor stood frozen, staring at the soup tureen where his toupee floated like a very expensive piece of roadkill. "Mr. Sullivan," Investigator Patterson said calmly, "we've been monitoring your revolutionary cryptocurrency real estate hybrid fund for 6 months. We have records of you promising 300% returns in 3 months. That's mathematically impossible unless you're running a Ponzi scheme." "This is entrapment," Connor shouted, his bald head gleaming under the chandelier. "You can't just come to a private party and—" "Actually, I was invited," Patterson said, "by the venue owner. Ms. Montgomery, I believe you have additional information for me?" I pulled up my phone again, this time showing a folder labeled Connor's Greatest Hits. 3 years of emails, text messages, and recorded phone calls where Connor bragged about scamming idiots with more money than sense. "My favorite," I said, projecting one email onto the venue's presentation screen, "is this one where Connor explains how he targets lonely old women with dead husbands and full bank accounts." Several older women in the audience gasped. Mrs. Henderson from table 4 stood up shakily. "You told me my late husband would have wanted me to invest. And you, Mrs. Cooper," I continued, "he told you it was a sure thing, didn't he? That you'd be able to leave more for your grandchildren?" The room was turning ugly, and not in the way Veronica's Botox intended. Speaking of Veronica, she was backing slowly toward the exit, clutching her purse. "Not so fast, Veronica," I said pleasantly. "We haven't discussed the family membership fees yet." I pulled up a spreadsheet showing 3 years of deposits, 30 family members paying $500 monthly for venue access they already had as event guests. That's $540,000 you've collected for a venue you don't own. "But you told us it was for maintenance and insurance," Cousin Bradley protested, his essential oil empire suddenly seeming less important than his missing money. "Interesting thing about that," I said, showing bank records. "The money went directly into Veronica's personal account, the one she shares with Harold. Harold, who'd been trying to order another drink at the bar, suddenly found his credit card declined. Then another, then another. "What the hell?" he muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Oh, that would be the court order freezing your assets." I explained. Went into effect this morning at 9 a.m. Turns out, when you embezzle $400,000 from your dead wife's life insurance and use it to fund your mistress's boutique in Scottsdale, banks take notice. The room went silent. Everyone knew Harold had remarried quickly after my mother's death, but embezzlement was a new twist in the family narrative. "You have no proof," Harold said, but his voice cracked like a teenager's. "Actually, I do," I said, pulling up more documents. "Bank records showing the life insurance payout going into an account you opened the day after Mom died, the same account that's been paying for a condo in Scottsdale, Arizona. Would you like me to show everyone the photos of you and Cynthia there last month? The ones where you're wearing matching Just Married t-shirts?" "You were married last month?" Veronica shrieked. "We're still married." "Technically, that makes you a bigamist, Harold," I said conversationally. "That's a felony in most states, including this one." Dolores, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly piped up. "This is all nonsense. June is clearly having a psychotic break. I have documentation of her mental instability." "You mean these?" I asked, showing a folder of poorly photoshopped psychiatric evaluations. "The ones you created using a template from Pinterest? Dolores, you're not a licensed therapist. You're not even an unlicensed therapist. You're a dog groomer who took one online course and decided that qualified you to diagnose people." "That's slander," Dolores shouted. "Actually, it's documented fact," Investigator Patterson interjected. "Practicing psychology without a license and creating false medical documents are both felonies. Miss Sullivan, you're looking at serious charges." Dolores's husband, who'd arrived late and had been enjoying what he thought was a normal family party, stood up slowly. "Dolores, what is happening here?" "Your wife has been creating fake psychiatric records to help Connor steal my inheritance," I explained. "She's also been claiming credentials she doesn't have. Check her office. It's actually the back room of the pet salon. The beautiful thing about dominoes is once they start falling, they don't stop." Family members were pulling out phones, checking bank statements, realizing how much they'd been scammed. The catering staff, who were actually my employees, documented everything on their phones. Nothing like having your own people serving drinks to people confessing crimes. "But wait," Connor said desperately. "June signed papers. She agreed to the incompetency filing." "Actually," said Robert, the disbarred lawyer who'd been sweating since the investigator arrived, "she didn't sign anything. She said she needed to think about it." "You told me she was too stupid to know the difference," Connor shouted. "And there's your conspiracy confession," Patterson said, making notes. "Mr. Robert Harrison, aren't you currently disbarred for embezzlement?" Robert tried to run. He made it about 3 feet before security, my security, who'd been posing as waitstaff, stopped him. "The security here is excellent," I noted. "I hired them myself when I bought the venue." I excused myself again, this time making no secret of heading to the owner's office. 2 minutes later, I emerged wearing my original thrift store outfit, the cranberry stain still visible on the cardigan. But something was different. I wasn't shuffling. I wasn't mumbling. I stood straight, shoulders back, and walked with the confidence of someone who'd just won a game everyone else didn't know they were playing. "Hello, family," I said, my voice clear and strong. "I'm June Lynn. You might remember me as the pathetic girl who lived above the garage, ate leftover scraps, and couldn't manage her own life. Surprise. I've been managing yours for the past 3 years." I pulled out my phone one more time, this time opening a file labeled Family Memories Audio Edition. "Veronica, remember this? I played a recording from last Christmas. That retarded sheep will never figure out what we're doing. She's too stupid to check bank records." Then another from Harold. "June's got to have money somewhere from her mother. Once she's declared incompetent, I'll find it." Connor's greatest hit. "The beauty is, she trusts us. She actually thinks we're family." Each recording was perfectly clear, legally obtained in a one-party consent state where only one person in a conversation needs to know it's being recorded. That person was always me. "You recorded us," Veronica gasped. "In our own homes. In my properties, actually," I corrected. "Did you think I didn't know you were living in the house on Maple Street? The one you told everyone you bought but are actually renting? From me? Through a property management company? You're 3 months behind on rent, by the way." The reveals kept coming, each one more satisfying than the last. Dolores's therapy practice, operating out of a building I owned. The penalty for breaking her lease after committing fraud on the premises? $60,000. Bradley's essential oil storage unit? Also mine. And storing potentially hazardous materials without proper permits. That's a health code violation with hefty fines. But the best part, I said, savoring the moment like fine wine Veronica pretended to appreciate, but actually couldn't tell from grape juice, is that every single one of you signed venue membership agreements with arbitration clauses. Guess who the arbitrator is? Montgomery Enterprises' legal team. You can't do this, Veronica said, her voice shaking. We're family. No, I said firmly. Family doesn't lock children in garages. Family doesn't steal inheritance. Family doesn't try to have someone declared incompetent to rob them. I turned to the investigator. Mr. Patterson, I believe you need statements from several people here? Indeed, he said. Mr. Connor Sullivan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Connor tried to run, slipped on a spot where his toupee had dripped soup, and face-planted into the dessert table. The image of him covered in Veronica's homemade, store-bought tiramisu was going to keep me warm for years. Mrs. Veronica Sullivan, Patterson continued, you're under arrest for insurance fraud, wire fraud, and identity theft. Identity theft? Veronica squeaked. Oh, did I forget to mention? I said innocently. Those credit cards you opened in my name, the ones you thought I didn't know about? I've been documenting every purchase, including that dress you're wearing, which, by the way, is definitely not designer. The stitching is all wrong. Harold tried to sneak out during the chaos, but Patterson's partner was waiting at the door. Mr. Harold Lynn, you're under arrest for embezzlement, bigamy, and tax evasion. Tax evasion? Harold protested. You didn't declare the stolen life insurance as income, I explained helpfully. The IRS takes that personally. As the handcuffs came out, I walked over to the gift table where I'd placed a small box earlier. Veronica, I did get you a birthday present. She looked at me with such hatred I almost felt something. Almost. It's a flash drive, I said, holding up the small device. It contains every document, every recording, every piece of evidence I've collected over the past 2 years. Your lawyer will probably want a copy. Why? She asked, her voice broken. Why did you wait so long? Because I wanted to make sure I got everyone, I said simply. Every person who laughed at me, who stole from me, who tried to break me. You thought you were so clever, collecting money for a venue you didn't own. But you never wondered who actually owned it. You never thought the stinky sheep could be the wolf. Dolores, who hadn't been arrested yet but knew it was coming, started crying. But I was just trying to help Connor. I didn't mean any harm. You tried to have me institutionalized, I reminded her. You created fake medical records. You told people I was dangerous. Do you know what that does to someone's reputation? Their ability to live a normal life? Speaking of which, Patterson said, Ms. Dolores Sullivan, you're under arrest for practicing medicine without a license, creating fraudulent documents, and conspiracy to commit fraud. The room was chaos. Half the guests were on phones with lawyers. The other half were calculating how much money they'd lost. Mrs. Henderson was hitting Connor with her purse while he tried to crawl away, still covered in tiramisu. There's one more thing, I announced, pulling everyone's attention back. Instead of pressing civil charges for the money you all stole from me, I'm offering a deal. Full confession, complete restitution, and you leave the state, or I pursue every legal avenue available, and trust me, I can afford better lawyers than you can. That's blackmail, Veronica shouted. That's business, I corrected. Something you'd know about if you'd actually earned anything in your life instead of stealing it. Harold's mistress, new wife, chose that moment to arrive, dressed in what looked like an entire boutique's worth of my mother's life insurance money. Harold, she shrieked, what's happening? Why are there police here? Cynthia, meet Veronica, I said helpfully. Harold's other wife, Veronica, meets Cynthia, the woman Harold married last month, while still married to you. The two women looked at each other, then at Harold, then at each other again. What followed was the kind of screaming match that would have made reality TV producers weep with joy. By the way, Cynthia, I added, raising my voice over their shrieking, that boutique Harold bought you, it's being seized as proceeds of embezzlement. You might want to start packing. The investigator and his team were efficient. Within 30 minutes, Connor, Veronica, Harold, Dolores, and Robert, the fake lawyer, were all in custody. The remaining family members sat in shocked silence, probably wondering if they were next. "For the rest of you," I said, addressing the room, "you were victims too. Veronica stole from you just like she stole from me. The difference is, you chose to believe her lies about me. You chose to laugh at my pain. You chose to be complicit in cruelty." Bradley raised his hand tentatively. Are we going to be arrested too?" "No," I said. "You're just going to be broke. And you're going to know that the person you called stupid, pathetic, and worthless is the one who exposed your gullibility." I looked around the room one last time. These people who had made my life hell, who had stolen my childhood, my inheritance, my dignity. They looked small now, pathetic, exactly how they'd always tried to make me feel. "Happy birthday, Veronica," I said as she was led away. "I hope you enjoy your new venue. I hear federal prison has lovely accommodations." "You'll regret this," she screamed. "You're nothing without us. You're just a stupid sheep." "Maybe," I said, "but this sheep owns the pasture." 3 months. That's how long it took for justice to really sink its teeth in. Veronica got 5 years in minimum security for fraud, with possibility of parole in 3. She'd tried to play the elderly woman card, but the judge, a woman who'd been scammed by her own stepchildren, wasn't buying it. Last I heard, she was teaching yoga to other inmates and claiming she'd invented the program. Some things never change. Connor got 18 months and a hefty restitution order. His investors got some of their money back from seized assets, including his collection of fake Rolexes and that ridiculous toupee collection I found in his apartment. 12 toupees. Who needs 12 toupees? Harold was the surprise hit of the conviction parade. Turns out the IRS had been watching him for years. Between the embezzlement, tax evasion, and bigamy, he got 7 years. Cynthia filed for divorce before the handcuffs were off. She's now working at the boutique she used to own as a sales associate. I might have had something to do with the new owner's hiring decision. Dolores got community service and lost her dog grooming license. Apparently, you can't even groom dogs with a fraud conviction. She's now working at a gas station and telling everyone she's taking a sabbatical from her practice. Robert, the fake lawyer? He got the book thrown at him. Practicing law while disbarred, creating fraudulent documents, conspiracy. 5 years. The real lawyers in prison are apparently making his life very interesting. As for me, I turned Rosewood Manor into something useful. It's now a community center offering free legal clinics for people dealing with family financial abuse. We help victims of inheritance theft, elder abuse, and family fraud. The first month alone, we helped 12 people recover over $2 million in stolen assets. I kept the massage therapy license active, though. There's something therapeutic about working with your hands after spending years using your brain to destroy people who deserved it. Plus, my clients tell me things. You'd be amazed what people confess when they think you're just the help. The family money I recovered, all $540,000 of it, went to a scholarship fund for foster kids aging out of the system. Kids who, like me, had to learn that family isn't always blood, and sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. Last week I got a call from the prison. Veronica using her phone privileges to harass me. Old habits, you know. "You ruined everything," she said, her voice still dripping with that special brand of venom only stepmothers in fairy tales are supposed to have. "No," I corrected her. "I revealed everything. There's a difference. You're still nothing but a stinky little sheep," she spat. "You always will be." "Maybe," I said, "but this sheep has teeth and a very good lawyer." I hung up and blocked the number. Then I did something I hadn't done in 17 years. I visited my mother's grave with flowers that weren't from the clearance section. "I did it, Mom," I told the headstone. "I got them all." That afternoon, I received a message through my website. A young woman, 23, dealing with a stepfamily that was systematically stealing her inheritance while convincing everyone she was mentally unstable. The same playbook. different players. I met her at a coffee shop, not the one above the Golden Dragon, but a nice place downtown that I also happened to own. She looked exactly like I had felt for 17 years. Defeated, exhausted, ready to give up. "They call me crazy," she said, tears in her eyes. "They say I'm making everything up." I handed her my business card, the real one, not the massage therapist cover. "They called me a stinky sheep," I said. "Now I run a multi-million-dollar real estate empire and they're in prison." "How?" she asked. "How did you survive it?" "By remembering that sheep might be prey animals," I said. "But they're also survivors. They band together. They protect each other. And sometimes, when pushed too far, they grow fangs." She smiled for the first time. "Will you help me?" "That's what the flock is for," I said. The next day, we started documenting everything. In 6 months, her stepfamily would learn what mine had learned the hard way. Never underestimate the sheep you've been shearing. Some sheep grow fangs.